Good deal. This is Real Fridays. We're starting about 5 minutes late. I apologize. This was my fault. And so I had a technical issue, and so I scheduled this a little bit later than I had expected. I'm Rick Rock, one of the founding members of Real Fridays, along with Brock Cassidy and Jeremy Potter, who is traveling, but will be calling in via one of our keynote sponsors of this podcast, which is Delta Airlines. So we want to thank Delta Airlines for accommodating technical and partnership resources to this podcast.
And that free Wi-Fi in the lounge should be give Jeremy a better connection than usual.
Yeah, no, that's right. And one of the other partners I was going to mention was La Croix, the mortgage professional's drink of choice during the workday to keep us sober and to keep us productive. So
you can see that I'm a discounter with my
bubbly.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. This is good. No, you know what's interesting? I just did a post, and I'm curious as to your thoughts on it. Especially coming from New York, it is. I know you're from New York, but you've lived quite a bit of time in New York City, and
6 years now.
And I did a post basically saying we're in this 9/11 moment in the mortgage business, and I even in my post I said forgive the analogy for those who might be offended by it, but I'm going to make it anyways. In that we have these market moving activities. You know, in 9/11 there was always this sense of like, okay, one aircraft hits one of the towers, it must be an accident. Maybe it was maybe low visibility, maybe it was cloudy, but it wasn't. It was a sunny day. It was confusing, but really it was easy to dismiss maybe some kind of an airplane incident. And then, 50 minutes later or whatever it was, the second plane hits the other tower, and all of a sudden it's like, we're under attack. This is a war, right? There's no question that this is intentional. And I feel like this market movement, and after 9/11, we simply looked at the world differently, unquestionably. We traveled differently. We looked at our neighbors on the planes differently. They got rid of all the phones that was behind the headrests of all the aircrafts because of the triggers, how triggering that was to so many, hearing the tapes being replayed. And in some ways, like, I feel like we're in a similar kind of shifting movement where I feel like we're going to look at the housing and mortgage and real estate markets fundamentally differently as a result of really two things. One is the data-driven vertical integration of the housing between these massive deals. I mean, these massive deals between Rocket, Mr. Cooper, Redfin, and then now we have an incredible acquisition between Bayview and Guild. And I do feel as though that there's, you take the confluence of these massive organizations that are being vertically integrated from cradle to grave, and then beyond, beyond the grave of home ownership, or rather of origination, which ultimately is home ownership, and AI, and the ability to sort of data mine that information that you're collecting. It's one thing to have the data, but in the past it was so easy not to do anything with the data. But now all of a sudden you have the data, and you have technology and tools to leverage that data to monetize it in ways that wasn't feasible in the past. And I just feel like one acquisition we can ignore. The second acquisition, I think from a competitive standpoint, we're at war. What say you, Brock? Insensitive, inappropriate, or do you think it's it really is apples and oranges. It's two different theaters, but yeah. I feel like it's the same kind of. We're going to look at the industry differently than we have up to this point.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a bit dramatized, but I get your point for sure. That it's you see something happen once and it's something, and two's a pattern, and three's a trend. Whatever the there's some buzzword to that effect. I think three's a trend is the classic one. So maybe we wait for one more, and then we have some other metaphors we can use. But no, I totally get your point. I think it is a call to arms for every other lender to think about. Spoken to most of our partners about it that we work with at NewZip, especially being the Redfin Rocket news, with the real estate mortgage connectivity specifically, which is where we play. But yeah, no, I think we've talked at length, as have a lot of our peers on a lot of stages and on a lot of podcasts, about servicers focusing on retention and whether that's going to be being a just an originator that sells your servicing off harder and harder. Seems like that's slowly or maybe quickly becoming true. Maybe has always been true, but more true. So I don't know. Yeah, I this deal's one that I don't really know either company like personally too much. Guild a little bit maybe. So I don't have too many like preconceived notions either way, but the scale of it's tremendous, and you know the implications of it are tremendous. I think, especially in the wake of Rocket laying out 11 billion or whatever it is between Cooper and Redfin in the last 2 months. So just the amount of M&A in general.
It's only accelerating, and I feel like it not only was it a shot across the bow, but it is a it's like the stories. Again, I'm mixing tons of metaphors, but I'm just saying that it's like the stories of the tsunamis that occurred, and there was all these activities that occurred prior to the actual, traumatic event. And I feel like we are entering into a very traumatic disruption in the way that mortgages are originated, to a point where you have Michael, our buddy, Kelleher, who's saying like in 2 years nobody's going to be using ICE, nobody's going to be using Compass. Like that's something that like you would have been just stupid to say something like that a couple of years ago. You would have been stupid to say that a year ago. Now all of a sudden the market has shifted so radically where we're asking ourselves, holy cow, are we going to be using ICE 2 years from now? Now the old paradigm would say, no, it's going to take 10 years to cut in, and this is going to be a gradual, technology adoption of yet a new technology. But AI is not an app that you download. You know what I mean? This is an ecosystem. Like the oxygen that we're going to breathe is just going to be different with how we view our organizations and how we take applications and serve the consumers. So I don't know, man. I feel like there's a lot of owners that are so scared to ask themselves the question, like the ramifications are too dramatic to ask themselves the question, like, what if this is as disruptive as
and we still are living in a business where everyone is still trying to perform in a given month, in a given week, in a given day, in a given quarter, whatever. So it's, I feel like people in the industry have always been rewarded for not looking up very far, right? It's a contact sport where you have to live in like the today for almost everyone, even at the executive level, right? So yeah, it is interesting to see. It's I've spent a lot of my career kind of being in more like strategy roles where I'm zoomed out more often. I feel like building NewsZip the last couple of years has had me more like in the trenches every day and seeing that side of things. It's hard to pull up and think about what systems you're using 7 years from now, or what your workflow is going to look like 4 years from now, things like that when you're busy every day. And our industry certainly rewards that short-term activity, so it's tough. But I think the gathering last week we talked about on our last show a lot, but they particularly are doing a good job with Housing Wire, particularly are doing a good job with giving people space to learn from leadership in the industry and outside the industry. I always liked in the real estate side going to the Inman conferences for the last 12 years or so, where they do something kind of similar that's real estate tech, prop tech specific. So I think it's always a hard balancing act. To your point, it's very difficult to ask those questions because you're still trying to perform this, in Q2. There's 10 days left in Q2. Is now the time to think about 10 years from now? I don't know. Of course it is. It always is, but it's hard.
Dude, that's such an insightful question. I mean, as far as like, how do you do planning? How do you do, and this kind of touches to my post I just made a minute ago, was saying that you basically have to look at I said, these market moves are serious. Only the arrogant would dismiss these occurrences. As owners, how should you look at things differently? You have to look at recruiting differently. You have to look at your cash position differently. You got to look at your production forecasts realistically, and you got to look at your operational position differently. Because I feel like what has led people to be competitive.
And I would say your like consumer value prop too. Like all these are around like bundling offers, which every other industry has done. Like I like seeing it. That's kind of what NewsZip works on in a lot of ways. But it's calling that to the forefront of you need a whole package of everything a consumer needs. You have to be closer to a one-stop shop. You don't have to do it all yourself, but you have to integrate with all of it or something. I mean, you have to have a solution. How about that? Yeah.
A tremendous amount of money is going to be made, and is in the process of being assembled. The models are being assembled. The technologies are being assembled. During moments of real technology shifts, like radical shifts, right? The next generation of wealth, and company and corporate wealth are created. And I keep asking myself, it's like, what is that technology? Like, what is that solution? Like, what is that particular point of entry? Because I want to get on it, to be totally honest with you. It just seems it's so disruptive right now. Like Michael Kelleher's post a couple days ago or yesterday on whether or not, maybe it was today, on whether or not anyone would be using Encompass or ICE's solution in 2 years to take a loan application, I think is massively disruptive to how we do business. And the companies that are emerging could be a Vesta. It could be some other loan origination solution that's AI powered, doesn't have the legacy challenges anchoring its technology development down. And it's able to build these innovations out of the gate right away. I mean, I'm trying to think of other technology applications. It could be if you're a horse and buggy manufacturer and you're just killing it, making all kinds of horse, the actual carriages. You're a carriage manufacturer, and all of a sudden, this thing called the steam powered engine and the gas engine comes into play, and you just ignore it. It's like at some point there is an inflection point where there's slow adoption, but then it really fires up and it just kills the carriage manufacturing altogether.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting to see the different phases of it now. You've seen a few more, but even just being in the industry for 11 or 12 years now, is like we've seen a few different, especially on the real estate side. I think even more so, we've seen a lot of different trends that got pretty far and then kind of fell back because either COVID or rates going up or whatever, markets slowing down. We had the iBuyers, we had the discounters, we had all kinds of different trends in real estate that logically should replace not the whole industry, but huge portions of it, and they haven't. But you just have to keep your eyes open to these things. I've been in the real estate side of things, real estate innovation side of things, a little bit longer than the mortgage side, but I think it's similar, where there's a lot of things that have almost disrupted the mortgage industry, and then not quite. And so you just have to kind of wonder what trends to be ready to ride, or not, or to keep your head down and keep building your business. But those people tend to still be worth a lot on the other side of every cycle. So if you build a good business yourself. But yeah, no, I'm a huge, early adopter of all kinds of different tech and all kinds of different industries. So I always like talking about it. It's just hard that it's yet to sort of find the one thing that's truly disrupted. I think the obvious one right now is just taking down the amount of like operational work, processing work, underwriting work inside any lender with AI decisioning, or even just rules-based decisioning that's been around for a while. So I hear a lot of companies talk about cutting down those roles, or their non-producing their non-producing workforce by 50%, 75%, 90% in the next X number of years. So that seems like a maybe fairly obvious shoe to drop, and people in that world should position themselves as people to help with the next generation of it, not stay stuck in this generation of it, certainly. But then I think, it gets a lot harder when it gets around customer service, actual sales, actual advising clients. Voice AI is great, but it's not good enough to do that. It's good enough to dial and then hand off to a person maybe. But I'm sure that'll change quickly. Voice AI, I wasn't even able to do any of that a year ago. So,
that was the rapid. That's why I've always said, like, the velocity of decision making is just being accelerated by just the velocity of change within the technology itself.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's pretty fascinating. So it's easy because we've fallen for these technology gimmicks in the past, and so it's easy to be skeptical. But I also think that the skepticism in the past has been rooted in sort of an understanding of certain logical assumptions around technology and adoption, that I think a lot of those assumptions are just simply being challenged in light of the paradigm shift that it brings. And now, like, I was in New York City last night, actually, with my daughter Genevieve, and my oldest daughter, or one of my daughters. What's that?
You didn't want to hit me up?
Well, I should have. It was a last minute trip. My 17-year-old was going to go see. There was a Korean pop band called Stray Kids that was playing at Citi Field in Brooklyn.
Interesting.
Or in not in Brooklyn.
Queens, yeah.
In Queens,
yeah.
And so my daughter Genevieve and I went into the city, kind of just touring around.
That's cool.
And we saw this sign here that said, like, "Stop hiring humans. The era of AI employees is here." And it's really interesting. The very first thing I thought of, to be honest with you, was when my grandfather's family came from Ireland. They were looking for workers in Boston. It was always like looking for, workers here. Irish need not apply.
Yeah.
It's funneled now to where discrimination is going to be expanded to human versus non-human discriminatory practices.
Yeah.
And it's really, really fascinating because the laws don't account for anything such as that. Laws don't group us into one category.
Yeah.
They're built to segment us across different categories. And now we have this era of don't hire humans, discriminate against them.
Yeah, it's like a Black Mirror episode, if you've ever watched that.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just like you stop being grouped by socioeconomic status or race or something else, and you start being grouped by human versus AI.
But isn't that fascinating, though? Stop hiring humans.
Yeah, it's a pretty attention-grabbing headline.
Well, it was effective. I stopped and took a photo of it, and I'll probably make a post about it eventually. But it really is a shocking realization of where we're heading in the era of work.
Yeah.
And why, I don't even know how long ago it was. I think it was Elon Musk 4 or 5 years ago that kind of, and people scoffed at him with the idea of a universal wage for people. But who was the Democratic candidate, the Asian fellow who was the Democratic candidate in 2016?
Andrew Yang?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was calling for it for different reasons, right? Just to kind of try to create.
He was like so I actually know him pretty well. He was the founder of the program I did, the entrepreneurship program I did in college, Venture for America, that originally matched me with my first job at Rocket.
Yeah.
So his view was pretty similar to what you're saying of, there's going to be fewer and fewer demands for humans to do like rote jobs. So let's get everyone a baseline universal income. People, some people can work and make more than that. Some people can make that and be fine. That was, it was X number of years ahead of its time. You be the judge, history will be the judge. But definitely had a point.
You know what's interesting with that is that everyone laughed at him, basically saying we can't afford it.
Yeah.
Right. And then COVID comes, and all of a sudden we're mailing checks all across the country.
Almost exactly what he had proposed, but obviously COVID accelerated it by.
I mean, it's fascinating because it proved him right that of course we can. There's other consequences to it.
Yeah. What are you gonna do when 50% of humans don't have to go to a job? You have to. What are they going to do for money? What are they going to do for time? Yeah, there's interesting questions beyond the industry.
So it's fascinating, dude. I mean, it really is becoming a fascinating discussion, for not just in us in mortgage, but also just for what connection is Michael talking about? I'm not sure. So Michael, you'll have to elaborate on this, Michael.
A second comment.
What's that?
You'll have to add a second comment.
I might even just. He's probably
see our live comments today for some reason. Oh, there they are.
I'm actually gonna send him the link to see if he'll call in, since Jeremy's kind of blowing us off. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Jeremy, you got the extra search in Delta, I'm sure. Getting patted down in the additional private screening room.
Michael Kelleher, Adopt the Brand, and I'm sending you the link, Michael. And if you can make it, great. If you can't, then this is your 15 minutes of fame right here, buddy.
Yeah, he's already gotten mentioned by name twice on this show by you. He's in vogue.
No, well, his posts have gotten a lot better.
I'm a big Mike fan. Mike and I are good friends.
Yeah, no, his posts I think have taken a whole new level of insight over the last 6 or 7 months, and I've complimented him on this many times.
Really? Yeah.
I really like. I think he's done a great job. I think for his clients, and done a great job. I think for the industry and raising awareness on different subjects. But yeah, no. So what my head's been a buzz about the acquisitions and that sort of thing. Are you? What has taken your attention over the last week? During the course of the last work week, are you working on any micro deals? Any deals that's moving NewsZip forward, or how are you doing?
Yeah, we haven't done the whole sort of like press release and everything, but we're in the process of launching probably the largest by LO count, certainly partnership right now with.
Can you say who it is?
Yeah, I can say it's public, just not. We haven't sort of like fully announced the launch yet. But yeah, with Sage Home Loans.
Fantastic.
Red Ventures, Bankrate's sister company. So they've got something like 150 direct consumer loan officers. We've been launching them not one by one, but team by team, 10 by 10, on NewsZip's platform for the last couple of weeks. So I had a ton of meetings there. Went out to Charlotte to their office about a week and a half ago, right before the gathering. So that's been taking a huge amount of my time, and then just getting deeper with our existing partners.
Yes, we got Michael. We're all like, we're heading toward a holiday because we're all like unshaven, and I haven't even worked out yet. I wanted to work out this morning, and I'm still waiting to get to the gym. But Michael, I love it. I appreciate you jumping on. What explain your comment about the cool connection. What was your thought there?
Just whipping up Andrew Yang like that. That's it made no sense to me during the election, but every day this AI piece, it's making more and more sense that this software is capable of really recreating people. And so it's going to be scary. I saw the latest one where somebody has a Google agent that does research and then sends the email, not at scale, but she just it's a Zapier actually. So she just hits a button and it will research Brock and then just send Brock an email for 10 minutes later. And the email is probably written where you wouldn't be able to tell. But I think, in the past that would be like your CRM or something, but that's just a Zapier.
Yeah.
If you get one Zapier to do that, like what, You can go just shopping for Zapiers, and then you don't have to.
I saw a
get
really
these whole
funny.
enterprise.
Yeah, no, that's absurd. How fast that stuff's going. Like, if you buy like Rocket Reach databases or something, download 10,000 people, send 10,000 cold emails. That you used to have to hire a team and do work 15 minutes of personalizing every one at least. That's insane. I saw in a similar vein, I saw a really funny one. It's kind of like a meme, but it was actually a real screenshot, I'm pretty sure, of someone joining a call, and they said, shit, I'm the only human on here. And there were like 8 of those like note-taking bots or whatever. And so they're just like, I guess I'll present my data, but no humans attended, just all their note-taking apps attended, and all their bots attended. And I was like,
yeah, and the Andrew Yang check coming in.
Yeah.
Because I wrote about it, yesterday?
Yeah.
So say somebody replaces the LOS, right? It becomes somewhat, let's just play the game. I got a bunch of slack back on it. How many jobs do you think that eliminates? Probably a lot, or most of them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you. In fact, I did a post that didn't get as much
5,000.
Didn't get as much I think attention that yours did, but I did a post basically saying, this was a few weeks ago, saying that the LOS is going away because with an AI intuitive series of questions, you don't need to look at an application and a bunch of fields that need to be form filled. All you need to do is answer a bunch of questions. It's going to automatically populate this in the background. And really what becomes the most important tool is going to be like a mortgage coach, or is going to be more of an advisory sort of solution that's going to present or help take inputs from the consumer, but really drawn out from the mortgage advisor. So they're not going to be loan officers. They're going to be more advisors, more on the financial circumstances of the consumer, because I speak your language and I am Irish and I'm working with the Irish community, and all these bridges that are going to be really difficult for AI to cross in the short term, at least in the short to midterm. But the application itself, I think, is uninteresting and totally going away. Especially if the Safe Act, if the Safe Act gets updated, then that was the premise of my post. When the Safe Act gets updated, then there genuinely is no, because AI can take care of all the licensable activities of selecting price and product, and doing the application, issuing the LE, collecting the information from the consumer, their social security number, and all that stuff. You don't need a loan officer to do that anymore.
Yeah, as long as the question can be answered by data, it's at risk of being disrupted in a very high degree. And I would say most of our questions, most of the defects in loans are large questions that can be answered by data. It just hasn't been totally frictionless at this point. But NewZip, total cost analysis, I wrote a post as well about that piece, which my birdie told me, who passed away now, so I got the wisdom before, advisor to some of these big people behind the scene. But he always said the demise of the IMBs is their obsession with trying to improve the LOS or the middle in general. And he always thought that ICE even knows that it's a losing man's game. And they are, they own Encompass, Ellie Mae, but their primary focus is not there at all in theory of like what their vision board is, what their 5-year vision. It's that marketplace, it's that up channel. Do we need to buy were they in on the talks of Movoto with Lower? I think so. Do they recognize, that they might need to make a purchase? Do they end up having to buy Zillow? I think Rocket, the big piece there is Rocket getting Mr. Cooper gives them Sagent, and I think that gets them away from ICE, because they know ICE is really focused on that top of the funnel marketplace. And I think both systems can work, Rocket and ICE's marketplace, etc. But
yeah,
you don't have a closed-end loop.
Using both for the moment, and
you've been tweaking
I think
Encompass for months. Years, decades. You're kind of just going to be stuck on their marketplace. So
yeah,
I think more focus. I love the idea of what you just said, Rick. and your product, Brock. I think both of those are where the focus should be. The big distraction is how can we go from 11 days down to 10 in our LOS, and that takes a lot of money and effort, and that is even more noticeable if you put all that money, effort, and resources top of the funnel and came up with more ideas on how to follow up and reach realtors and close deals and improve conversion rates, etc.
That's fun. You know what's funny about that whole like cycle time to close loans? Like consumers, for the most part, aren't asking to close a loan in 3 days or 4 days or 5 days or 6 days. Even if I went online and said I want to, like qualify, like I could qualify for like an auto loan or whatever the case may be, and get.
You guys hear me?
Get what's that? Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I
Brock,
can. I can hear both of you. Mike seems to be losing us.
Mike, you have a problem, buddy? Michael,
The tech overlords are getting him.
I want to see you with a 1970s porn stash, and I want you to shave your beard. No, he didn't respond. So he definitely
Yeah.
that'll be a comment.
That's only what I responded to. Yeah.
I'm gonna try to remove him, and then I'll add him back. Are you there, Michael? Michael?
Doesn't seem particularly there.
Yeah, Michael.
It wouldn't be Real Fridays without at least
Now I know.
people getting lost.
Now I know the look that he gives his wife. What his wife is yelling at him. It's just not connecting with him at all. Can you hear us, Michael?
I can. I think I was very far behind or something. I don't know what happened.
Did you? What did you hear? You got to watch the tape over again after we've. you were looking at us like
we're 1,000 miles away.
Like trying to figure it out, and I said, now I know what Michael's wife looks at every time she's yelling at him. Just like speechless.
I could see you guys. I think I was watching you listen to me from like 20 seconds before, and no one was talking, and I was like, what is happening?
Yeah. No, what was the question? Did we ask Mike? Brock, bring us back on track.
Well, we were just going down the road of the legacy systems being stuck in different, whether it's ICE or whoever else's LOS and marketplace, and trying to get marginally faster. Consumers, we just always say,
it's just that nobody's asking for a 6 hour. Yeah. No one's asking for a same day approval and funding for.
They want the loan to be ready in
when they need it.
3 or 4 weeks on their closing date with zero issues. They don't necessarily care if it's in 3 hours. I mean, it's nice, but
yeah.
Like what is the most important part of an LOS? Would you say like is HMDA probably?
It's docs and compliance, yeah.
Which would be HMDA, LAR, right? Like that piece seems to be where they have the most trouble, or the fines are the biggest. Is that, and then docs? But could you run a whole piece on a doc provider, or do you still need the LOS to initiate them?
Well, you need you can't, to my knowledge, you can't take an application on docs. The doc providers take information from the loan application that's taken to produce the docs. So they'd have to create a whole separate layer around the document engine, right? Like Doc Magic, for instance, or whatever. They don't ingest that data from the point of sale. They could, but this is the not monopoly, because I don't want to say this, but this was the strategic advantage that Encompass had, was anytime there was any kind of feature movement that would go in that direction, LMA was pretty smart to be able to mess with their SDK integration, put language in their SDK that might prohibit that kind of movement, or even their I don't know if they call this anymore, but the ePass agreement to be able to pass services to and from Encompass. They were not shy of kicking vendors off the platform. So you kind of have the vendors by the tactical cahoots. If you see an opportunity to replace the value proposition of the very platform that you get all your business from.
Yeah. Is it fair to say like consumer direct models would be the first ones to really somehow get into a new age where the LOS doesn't look like it does today? Like, is distributed retail stuck on Encompass because it works with all the different vendors and they all need different vendors?
We're like, I missed the question though.
Like how
So when I said the LOS in 2 years is a religion, not a solution, right? Everybody's kind of said no chance, and I like, oh no, they said who would be the LOS then, Mike? If it's not Encompass, then who? And I said I don't think the answer.
I think that's the wrong question. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the answer's out there today. But whatever that answer is, I assume it's the consumer direct model where you would be able to implement it first, right? Because they're pretty good at single providers in each category.
Yeah.
I think so. But and think about how much easier that's going to get when you plug into a Rocket or you plug into, a Bayview / Guild. You know what I mean? That all of a sudden, and then Freedom. All of a sudden you start etching away a larger lion's share of the origination picture, bit by bit. And so I would say that could happen a lot faster than one might think. 2 years was who knows? I mean, in this environment, it's hard to tell how.
Yeah, I said on a show a few weeks ago that I was at one of the tech conferences, one of the real estate tech conferences actually. So a little bit different than the circuit I see you guys on. And some of the vendors were talking about rolling out new features within a week, within 2 weeks, right? Like someone would say, "Oh, your competitor has this feature." They'd say, "Okay, I'll demo it for you in a couple weeks." And the turn time on development from tech vendors is unbelievable. So it's hard to imagine when it's that exponential what might be available in 2 years, but it's still going to be hard to get it adopted.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. So I work with Sapiens Decision, the decisioning engine behind LP, Freddie Mac, and other places. It's unbelievable what you can do with it as far as creating decision models to solve problems. New layer. I do believe it'll be a new layer in mortgage for more than 50% of IMBs, the top ones. But now with AI, you can drag your PDFs into this solution and the AI will create the decision models versus having to do them from scratch. Or say you have a product with overlays in a matrix, it'll create the decision model. That allows you to move at years at a pace of weeks. So it's not like the Sapiens Decision is AIing on behalf of the mortgage company. It's using AI to release new features faster, a new product, or in this case, new decisions. But totally agree, Brock. It's I think people expect like AI to be the front part of what's making it so great. It's almost in the background. It's making everything that you're buying or connecting so great. And when somebody finally figures out how to drag and drop integrations, right? I think that's when it's going to be game over. So then, like you said, Doc Magic, I drag my solution into the API thing, and all of a sudden it works with Doc Magic. Well, that's I think when the LOS is in trouble.
I agree. I definitely agree. I think it's solutions like Vesta and others that might not have the legacy, and I have no relationship with Vesta, so other than the fact that I like what Mike's doing.
I don't know what happens. It's like when I talk, I end up.
We can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you. There must just be some kind of a lag. I don't know.
Yeah, we can hear you, Mike.
But same. I'm a big fan of Mike Yu and Vesta, but no working relationship or partnership.
I just love what he's doing and how he's been very disruptive in his conversations and in his ambitions.
Yeah.
What conferences are you going to? Any conferences sometime soon?
Not a ton. I feel like it's like slows down again now until September, October. What about you?
It's really slowed down. I think probably maybe the AI summit, maybe the AI summit was that in August with Housing Wire, and I did a pitch to them to speak at it with some of my Stanford contacts, and on AI and machine learning and some of the applications that are coming out.
Nice.
And so we'll see if that works out. But I love what Housing Wire is doing, and I want to support it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I was invited to a SnapDocs sort of retreat for some mortgage executives the first week of August, so I'm looking forward to doing that. It's about a dozen or so mortgage companies in Vail, Colorado. But beyond that, I am just looking for the next set of opportunities. You'll have to send me a list of your conferences that you're going to be attending over the next maybe 3 or 4 months, because usually August. So I should say September and October, things really start heating up around the NBA annual and some of the other conferences around that time.
Yeah. Well, I'll be at all all those ones. We also go to some real estate ones, like I said earlier. Inman is real estate tech, prop tech.
That's always in September, right? Inman.
That's in July, very end of July.
Oh wow. Okay.
In San Diego, so I may go to that, but it's not as mortgage heavy. And then maybe it depends. Sometimes I go to AIM, NAMB, Acuma to see our partners in the broker and credit union channels. I probably go to some or all of those, and then MBA annual, Housing Wire, IMB, Blueprint is a cool one, more like VC investors and fintech. But yeah, I'll send you a list. And let me know. And I'm also, we're trying to get out there more as we continue to grow and gain scale. Want to penetrate more markets and more niches. So if there's we're becoming a lot more. I'm becoming a lot more open-minded to going to regional events or specialty events now that we're kind of at a place to grow in those places. So yeah, let me know where you think we should be going. I should be going.
Well, let's definitely do that. And it's too bad that Jeremy couldn't have jumped on, because I know he's always such a massive contributor, both in his insights on the marketplace, but his activities, in it.
Yeah.
It was awesome to see you at the Housing Wire event, and I know that I've already secured my pass for next year's the gathering, so cool. I would recommend you to do the same. And maybe next year we can lobby Housing Wire to get Brock Cassidy on stage. Let's come up with some kind of a pitch where we can.
REALFridays live. Yeah.
I think that would be good. Did that surprise you that people have said that we're one of the longest standing podcasts? Was that Michael who said that?
Yeah, I think Mike's. Yeah, I think he said it.
God, that's surprising.
I mean, it's been we're more than a year and a half. I think we've missed a couple Fridays, but we must be close to 100 episodes.
I've been uploading all of our episodes in the Google Drive, and so I'll have to make sure you guys have access to it, so that way we can somehow maybe hire someone to AI kind of repurpose into clips and reels and different things that might be interesting to post. But yeah, I'll make sure that you and Jeremy have access to it, so we can kind of mind share around what to do with it.
Yeah, sounds good.
Well, good. Well, I look forward to it. We're gonna have a show next Friday. I know next Friday is the 27th. Oh, we are. We're having what's his name? Who's gonna be on Friday?
We have
it's Jeremy's contact there from that.
Yeah, we'll have Potter post about it. I'm not 100% sure which one. What we ended up booking for next week.
We have Peter from Mova.ai.
Oh yeah, cool, very cool.
So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one. Yeah, Peter Bannister. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, but what I want to do is let's call it a wrap. A good episode, good touch point. I always love talking to you, Brock, and I look forward to including Jeremy in the future here. Yeah,
got a mic pop up. Jeremy stuck in security, presumably, at the Detroit Delta terminal.
Yeah,
we'll find him next week.
Well, he's a big guy. all 6'4" of them. You know, there's a lot of cavities to search. So
Yeah. Jeez. All right. Well, that's a good place to leave it. Yeah.
All right. Well, you take care, Brock. Happy Friday, and this
Yeah.
is a wrap for Good Fridays, for Real Fridays, here on June 20th, 2025. So take care, buddy.
Yeah. See ya.